Hello there, this is Big Benedict. We're playing Devil May Cry 4 on Dante Must Die difficulty, and this is mission 3 of 20. It's entitled The White Wing, and we're tasked with searching for Fortuna Castle. This part of the game, it's pretty simple. I mean, there's just a few puppet legs here. The ones with the blades on their legs are the puppet legs. All grabbable enemies. What I didn't mention in the previous video, just because there were so many things to discuss, was that this game, if anyone says that this game is not challenging, they really don't. They really haven't. I don't think they've experienced Dante Must Die difficulty. But it's not as hard as Devil May Cry 3. But still, it's very, very hard, regardless. So that makes Devil May Cry 3 just outrageously difficult, in my opinion. But the thing that makes this game manageable, with the respect to Nero, is the Devil Bringer that he has. With Dante, it's the distortion that he does, because he has when you do the Devil Trigger, he has certain frames of that have extremely powerful attacks. It's not really an attack, it's just like some of the frames, like when you do the backwards uppercut and you can connect with an enemy a lot of the frames, like when it flashes, I think I'll have to read a little bit more about it, but if you are not aware of what the Devil Trigger distortion is, it makes the game a lot more manageable. Some might say that it's cheating, but I don't think so, because they brought back the exact same attack in DMC. Not the same powerful attack, but the same animation, so it's arguable that it was in here for a reason. And in fact, if they did want to have the distortion out of the game, they wouldn't have put it in this PC version, which came out, I think it was maybe it wasn't like half a year after after DMC 4, but it could have been like 4 or 5 months later. They would definitely have known about it, but they kept it in the game. They retained it, so that's why I think that it's just, you don't really know what you're talking about if you're saying that this game is not hard, but still, there are pro players that could say that. I'm not talking about them necessarily, but you've really got to be careful here, because this is one of the first examples in this game where it's just outrageous, because if you die here, what do you think happens? What happens is they send you all the way back to the fucking beginning of the level, and how is that justified? I don't understand how that is justified. Why not start the player? If they're not going to start the player on this exact screen, just have them start on the bridge where the player was going to pass into the next screen. It's just one of those archaic kind of checkpointing. It's not checkpoint. You don't get a fucking check. It's not a checkpointing system. So we haven't seen these frosts since Devil May Cry 1. They were left out of number 3, and number 2 doesn't really exist in my mind, but because it's so shitty. Anyway, but these guys, they spawn in like an ice shield, and then at some points they will put that shield back up to get more HP. You notice that they start devil triggering now that the fight has elapsed a little bit, so you want to get on them as quickly as possible. Sometimes your throw, when you try to throw these guys, it'll miss. When they're devil triggered, it misses a little bit more, but you can still grab them, and you don't have to be devil triggered to grab them. But I think it's a little less risky to use the Devil Bringer like on the ground, like try to grab them, because his grab is pretty slow, and it's more. Oh, I missed that little cutscene. I'm sorry about that. I feel very bad about that. If you rewind that, there was a little cutscene right there at the end of the battle. And it's hard to catch all of them, but I am instituting extreme editing. I talked about this in the previous guide that I did, and that's what I've done. So I haven't trademarked the name or anything like that, because it's just pointless. There's no reason to do that. But yeah, so up ahead is another example of extreme editing. What I've done is I've smashed all the chairs. I was thinking to myself, I'll just put the smashing of the chairs and fast forward, but why even put that in there? it's one of those things when you edit a lot. That would have been something that I would have done like a long time ago when I wasn't very competent at editing, or what I don't want to do is waste people's time. Like when I did this guide before, I was in this chapter, and I went into the area where there's a table and there's a lot of silverware that you can destroy. Well, I already did that, and I allowed myself to get killed because the checkpoint is actually in this castle. So if you die, it's okay. But it's just one of those things where, why even put that in there, Because then I'll have to fight the dogs twice. But these flaming dogs here, you don't fight them too many times in the game. But it's not like in God of War where you can grab a dog, throw the dog into the other dogs, and expect to have iframes, because you just don't get any iframes in this game when you're throwing enemies. If you're throwing an enemy and you activate the double trigger, that's having iframes. You can get away with that. But sometimes you just don't have enough double trigger, obviously. So just do not use the double trigger unless you absolutely need to, would be my best advice. Okay, now we're coming up on a really notoriously bad section. I ranted about this part in the next chapter. In the torture chamber, it's going to be a really big brawl, and it's even worse on Legendary Night mode. If you ever played that mode, you get damaged as if it were on hard mode, but there's so many enemies. It's actually, one starts to like laugh at how many enemies there are because it's so bogged down with enemies. But so anyway, we have the swords here, which you can shoot and they will occasionally fall down, but it's a lot easier to grab them in the air and then throw them at the other enemies. And I just like to stay airborne here so that I avoid the puppets, the scarecrows. The scarecrows are really not an issue in this game, but they can do good damage when they're double triggered. And see, even the sword's double triggered, which pretty much means that they don't get any more hit points, but they do take more damage off of you. And why you don't get iframes in this game when you're doing a simple throw is really beyond me. I don't understand it. Maybe it's because they were trying to compensate for the player getting iframes during double trigger canceling. When you have the immunity from the frames when you're actually switching into double trigger mode. But that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem to balance out. Just having that, it doesn't seem to lend any kind of credence for not giving the player the iframes for a throw. And to me, it would just make the game more enjoyable. Sure, it would make it a little easier, but I just really value enjoyment, and that's why I always say in every one of my guides in the description, please, first and foremost, enjoy. I hope this helps you, but primarily enjoy. But I did this on my first try over here, and then I actually accidentally restarted, closed the program, because I bought this in Steam. But right here, you just want to very quickly jump over here, and then when these two light up right here, jump very quickly, like even a split second before that they solidify. And then on this one, you're going to have to do a final jump to the left or to the right when you latch onto the second one, because they speed up and they do different patterns on the difficulties. When you're playing on easy or normal, they're very slow, and some of them are just locked in place. But when you get onto the harder difficulties, it can be really difficult to do those. Anyway, right here is the checkpoint, in case you're wondering. So what I decided to do here was I decided to deal with these frosts. But when I come around the other side of the castle, there's more frosts, and I'm just not going to deal with them. The frosts, they really aren't too bad, but as you can see, it's just kind of irritating when you're grabbing them in the air and the other guys are shooting you out of the air. They've got that long-range shooting attack, so you're going to have to just simply jump over it when it comes, so just watch out for that as best you can. And I'm doing the exceed attack. And fire in the air, you're using the gun. Now, in the previous video when I was saying that a single bullet on this mode does nothing, that's really not true, because it does something. It's just so marginal that it doesn't really seem like it's doing nothing, but I still do it because something is nothing, in my opinion. Even if it's marginal, at least it's something that you're doing. You're actively engaging in the battle. So, you know, I really don't enjoy the fighting the Frosts too much, to be honest. But they're just, it's kind of hard to see when they're swinging, because their features kind of blend in together. They're kind of a weird enemy, but they do have a pretty fast swipe. So if you're in trouble, just don't complete your combo. Just cancel out of your combo and evade. And if you need instant iframes, just do a jump. I love how the jump in this game gives you iframes. It's very helpful. And also try to throw one enemy into the other enemy by aiming at the other enemy with the camera. You will deal damage. It's friendly fire in this game, so it's very, very good. But the reason I haven't covered Devil May Cry 3 is because it's tough. It's so hard to the point where when I play it, I hate the experience. Whereas with this game, it is extremely hard, in some places excruciating, but I enjoy the game. See how I double triggered out of that being frozen? If you're ever in a status effect like that where you're frozen, sacrifice the double trigger to get out of it. It's really good. It's like being able to Ninpo cancel out of a grab in Ninja Gaiden. That should definitely be something that's in Ninja Gaiden, but it's not. And the game would be so great if you could do that. Okay, so that combat adjudicated right there. The orange ones are for Dante and the blue ones are for Nero, if you're wondering. And I'm just going to skip this fight. When we come back here as Dante, we'll have to fight a Blitz. And as you can see, you see this? I have one hit left, and if I died over there, which is highly possible, even though I have a gold orb, I don't want to waste it though. The checkpoint would be right after that sequence when you're latching onto the Grim Grip points in the torture chamber. But if I were you, to prepare for this difficulty mode, I would go through all of the difficulties, and what I did is actually I did not use any items except a few on hard difficulty. I saved up all my items, so I have a lot of items saved up. A lot of holy waters. The holy waters don't do as much damage, obviously, in this difficulty, but if you need a quick, you want to kill a lot of weaklings, it's really good to have the holy water. Or if you want to finish off a boss, if the boss is being really evasive and you just want to get rid of his ass, just drop a holy water. So in the next video, we'll be able to interact with the gyro blades, and we'll be fighting the frog boss. And I don't know his name, but I really like fighting that boss. I hated him at first. It's one of those things where, I talked about this in a previous guide, but I fucking hate bosses. I hate them, and they're not fun to fight. But the bosses in this game are, if you get good, it's fun. It really is. But some of the bosses, I just don't like bosses that are really evasive and constantly run away from you, which is the case with the Emperor, who you fight at the end of the game, and also one other time is Nero. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Just make sure you smash all the objects in this room. And then we'll be fighting some Nilo Angelos, which we haven't really seen for a while. I think they were in number 3, but correct me if I'm wrong. I don't seem to remember them too much. But anyway, so there's a hidden cache of items right up here. I'm not sure how much it is. Normally it's like a few hundred, but here's the checkpoint right here, and we're going to be fighting these guys. What they do is they have a shield that they always keep up, but which disintegrates over time, and then as you hit them, it will regenerate. So if you hit them and they're about to strike with a javelin, you can actually get the iframes right through a jump, but you have to do it very, very quickly. Otherwise, it'll stab you. See, like right there, as I did that, I should have put that in fast or slow motion, but these are like solitary ones. Like, see, their shield just breaks, and you can launch them up if you want to. Launching them up and then grabbing them in the air does more damage, especially if you have a devil trigger activated. So that's an aerial devil trigger throw is the most you can deal damage to these enemies here. But some of these enemies they'll come in packs and they'll have a gold leader, and like he will like lead the pack. So when we get to those, I'll show you how to deal with those guys as best you can. But basically, it's focus on the leader and then evade the followers as they charge after. But these guys have the like gas javelins, and they telegraph it by revving it up. So what I do is I let my sword bounce off the shields a couple of times, and then as they're going to strike, I jump, and then I jump over them to where I'm behind them, and then I grab them. See, that was a good example of it right there. But just be cautioned that, you know, on all these grabs, you're vulnerable. So that's the end of the chapter, you guys. I'll see you in mission 4. Thank you.